welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're diving deep into something I think we all feel but rarely talk about: why our souls seem to swing like pendulums between the sacred and the secular. Picture this. It's Sunday morning, and you're sitting in a church pew, soaking in the stillness. By Tuesday afternoon, though, you're neck deep in emails while fluorescent lights buzz overhead. That sacred feeling, it's already a distant memory. So why is it that we so often run to the altar for comfort, only to sprint back to the chaos of the world for fulfillment? Here's one take. The human heart is wired for rest, but we often confuse rest with distraction. Take a moment to think about it. Isn't it easier to scroll through Instagram or binge watch a show than to sit in silence and reflect on your life? The world offers instant gratification, and let's be honest, who doesn't love a quick dopamine hit? But here's the catch. The peace it offers is about as lasting as a sugar rush. Now, let's flip the script for a second. Imagine a marathon runner. They know water stations are crucial, but they also know drinking too much water mid-race can slow them down. The church is like that water station, a place to refuel, not a finish line. But too often, we treat it like a pit stop to fix the damage caused by chasing the world's promises. And here's the challenge. The world feels tangible, while the sacred often feels abstract. How do we anchor ourselves as something we can't see when everything we can see is screaming for our attention? Here's a forward-looking thought. Maybe the key isn't choosing one over the other, but learning to inhabit both spaces intentionally. What if we stopped viewing the sacred as an escape and started seeing it as the lens through which we engage the secular? The pendulum might not need to swing so wildly if we tethered our hearts to something eternal. Let's explore that more in the next segment. All right, let's talk about why the world holds such a magnetic pull over us. Here's a fact to chew on. Humans are biologically wired to seek instant gratification. It's called the dopamine loop. Every time we achieve something, buy a new gadget, get a promotion, or even receive a like on social media, our brain releases dopamine, making us crave more. The world knows this and exploits it mercilessly. Ads, algorithms, and even workplace cultures are designed to keep us chasing the next hit. Let me share a quick story. A friend of mine once told me how they worked tirelessly for years to climb the corporate ladder. They finally got the corner office, the six-figure salary, the accolades. But you know what they said to me? It felt good for about a week, and then I was just empty again. That's the thing about the world's promises. They're like cotton candy. Sweet in the moment, but they dissolve the second you bite into them. But wait, let's challenge that narrative for a second. Is it entirely wrong to desire success or material comforts? Not necessarily. The problem isn't the things themselves, it's the weight we place on them. When we start to believe that our identity or worth is tied to these achievements, we're stepping into dangerous territory. The Apostle John warned about this in 1 John 2:15, where he spoke of loving the world's fleeting promises over the eternal love of the Father. So where does this leave us? Here's a thought. What if we approach the world's offerings with open hands instead of clenched fists? Enjoy the good things, but don't let them define you. When we stop looking to the temporary for eternal satisfaction, we begin to break free from the cycle of disappointment. Let's keep building on this idea in the next segment. Okay, let's switch gears a bit and talk about why we find it so easy to retreat back into the world. Here's a fact. The human brain loves familiarity. It's called the status quo bias. Change, even positive change, requires energy and effort, and honestly, who has the bandwidth for that when life is already overwhelming? The world, for all its flaws, feels like home because we know how to navigate it. Here's an example. Imagine someone who's spent years mastering office politics. They know exactly when to speak up in meetings, who to align with, and how to climb the ladder. But when they step into a quiet church service, they feel exposed, vulnerable, Suddenly, they're not the protagonist of their own story. That shift can be terrifying, so they retreat to the comfort of the world where they know the rules. Now, let's push back on that idea. Is staying in your comfort zone really as safe as it feels? Think about it, comfort zones are often just prisons with no visible bars. The world asks us to defend our egos, to consume endlessly, to compete relentlessly. That's exhausting. Meanwhile, God asks us to surrender, to let go of the very things that are weighing us down. It's counterintuitive, but true freedom often lies on the other side of discomfort. So here's the challenge. What if we redefined what safe means? Instead of equating safety with familiarity, what if we saw it as alignment with something eternal? It's a paradigm shift, but one that can radically change how we live. Let's dig deeper into this idea up next. All right, now let's talk about the heart of the struggle. Trying to live in two kingdoms at once. Here's a fact. The Bible describes this as spiritual adultery. James 4:4 doesn't mince words when it says friendship with the world means enmity against God. That's strong language, but it gets to the point. Divided loyalty tears us apart. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine being in a tug of war with one team pulling you toward God's kingdom and the other toward the world. You're in the middle, stretched thin, exhausted, and unable to fully commit to either side. That's what split allegiance feels like, a constant state of tension that robs you of peace. But here's a counterpoint. Isn't it possible to engage with the world without compromising your faith? After all, Jesus himself said we are to be in the world, but not of it. The tension isn't inherently bad. It's how we manage it that matters. The problem arises when we let the world dictate our identity instead of letting God define it. So here's a forward-looking thought. What if we started viewing our lives as mission fields rather than battlegrounds? Instead of fighting to balance two opposing forces, we could focus on bringing the values of God's kingdom into the world. That shift in perspective could be a game changer. Let's explore how to do that in our next segment. So how do we break free from this exhausting cycle of running to the world for fulfillment and back to God for healing? Here's a fact. True rest comes from alignment with eternity. Matthew 11:28 says, "Come to me, all who are weary, and I will give you rest." That's not just poetic language, it's a promise. Let me share a hypothetical scenario. Imagine your life as a sailboat. When your sails are aligned with the wind, you glide effortlessly across the water. But when you fight against the wind, you struggle, exhaust yourself, and risk capsizing. Aligning with God's will is like setting your sails to catch the eternal breeze. It doesn't mean life will be easy, but it will feel purposeful. Now, let's address a common objection. Some people worry that surrendering to God means giving up their individuality or ambitions. But here's the thing, God isn't asking you to abandon your dreams, He's asking you to filter them through His eternal perspective. When we do that, our ambitions often become more meaningful, not less. So here's the takeaway. Rest isn't about inactivity, it's about alignment. When we stop chasing the world's hollow promises and start living from a place of eternal purpose, the pendulum finally stops swinging. Let's wrap this up in the final segment. All right, let's bring it all together. How do we live in the world without belonging to it? Here's a fact. The key is not to abandon the world, but to engage with it through the lens of eternity. Think of it like being an ambassador. You're in a foreign land, but your loyalty is to your home country. Here's a personal example. I know someone who works in a high-stress corporate job but starts every day with prayer and reflection. They say it's like putting on armor before stepping into battle. Their faith doesn't remove the stress, but it changes how they navigate it. They're not just working for a paycheck, they're working with a sense of purpose. But let's not oversimplify. Living this way isn't easy. The world will constantly try to pull you back with its noise and distractions. That's why it's crucial to have practices that anchor you, whether it's regular prayer, community, or simply taking time to reflect on your values. Without these anchors, it's easy to drift. So here's my final thought. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. Each day, make small choices that align your heart with eternity. Over time, those choices add up, and the pendulum stops swinging. All right, that's all for this episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye!